Is fixing flat feet a myth? Hey guys, welcome back. This video will be about fixing your flat feet and what that means. As we develop our concepts, we're coming to the understanding that a full range of motion is the key in all aspects of our mobility. Before, we were told that we couldn't squat with our knees over our toes. That was unhealthy. But then now we understand that that is the key to knee health. We were also told you couldn't deadlift with a rounded back, and that turns out to be untrue also. We were told that we couldn't fix our flat feet either, at least not without surgery and using orthotics. But did I fix my flat feet without those? Yes, I did. Do I have high arches? No, and I never will. But I have something more important. I have control over the pronation and supination of my arch, which is what I believe it actually means to fix your flat feet. Flat feet is the inability to create or hold a supinated foot position with the ball of your foot in contact with the ground while maintaining a neutral Achilles tendon alignment. This inability is painful for those who suffer with it. If you don't have pain and it isn't impeding your movement, then you may have nothing to worry about at all. But you may still benefit from the gain of developing your foot function and wearing barefoot shoes. A common question I receive, well, how high will my arches be? And that will be based on numerous factors, based on your anthropometrics and environmental factors. How wide are your feet? How long have you lived with flat feet? How muscular are your feet? Have your feet suffered injury? Or have you had surgery performed on your feet? A common comment I receive about my feet in my videos is having the appearance of fallen arches, which it actually isn't. It actually is a muscle, the adductor hallucis, developed from decades of wearing flip-flops and maybe too many reps of towel curls. And if this is pronounced on your foot, the appearance of an arch will always be low. For me to compare my low arch on a wide foot to a high-arched individual who also has a slender, non-muscular foot is like comparing a strongman competitor's hand to a dancer's hand. It is amazing how many people think that all feet should look the same when our hands do not. But I do believe that they should function within relative parameters. Another question I get is about the scrunching or the gripping of my toes. My toes are double jointed, and so are my fingers. Sorry for the visual. I can stand relaxed with the same arch position, just like I can point my finger in a relaxed position. I can do it somewhat, right? But when I extend, it gets a little scrunchy. They have a chance of being crooked appearing, but that is individual to me. But just look at the similarities of my fingers, of my toes, right? They lock at these points, and that's just me. And I haven't figured out how to fix that, if there is a fix for that. And I scrunch my toes as an ingrained habit, developed from long-term effects of wearing flip-flops. Hence why I also made a video about the dangers of wearing flip-flops, because I've ingrained this bad motor pattern, and I didn't want you at home to develop it too. When developing your foot function, you would like to practice with and without the influence of flexing your toes. But gripping the ground is a strength in itself, and will be necessary in performing explosive movements, such as sprinting and jumping. For reference, always keep in mind the similarities of your hands to your feet. Wouldn't you grip the ground in a handstand walk? It is obvious that we grip the ground when performing athletic movements. In terms of demonstrations, for me to pronate while standing is abnormal, because pronation is engaged as a function of ankle dorsiflexion, of which I'm not performing. In order to show you a pronated foot, I will relax my foot, but this is unnatural because pronation should only be engaged when stepping forward. So the idea that I can show you a relaxed foot and then bring it back into an arch means that as I relaxed it, I was doing it in a way that is not natural, in a neutral state. So I will then have to squeeze or contract those muscles to bring it back into the position that it had before. Hence that scrunching that you're seeing. It's no trickery, just biomechanics. But otherwise, I can walk and still maintain an arch. The best way to show you pronation is to actually put the knee forward. And notice again the tracking of the foot. You want to bring the knee over about the third toe. If you're going to put the knee forward, your foot should be in this position. If the foot is angled like this, that means the knees go slightly outwards. As for keeping an arch while walking, that is not a goal and is actually a dysfunction on the opposite side of the spectrum of having flat feet. A high arch foot that is incapable of pronation is just as debilitating as having flat feet. And while we're on this subject of my feet in particular, let's talk about these bunions that I have. Over the pandemic, I've learned to inline skate. And I bought the recommended brand and model for people with wide feet. At least that's what they said. They are nowhere near as wide as my feet are and are causing me a bit of pain, but I do enjoy the sport. Which leads me to another hurdle that you'll face when fixing your feet. Concessions will be made if you're practicing a sport that demands specialized footwear. I often receive questions about football cleats, running spikes, climbing shoes, and the like. There just isn't enough complaints from the people with wide feet for the manufacturers to change their molds. And I don't know if I live in a wide foot bubble, but by the shape of most people's feet, I don't think the width of conventional shoes actually fits the majority of the population. And it is actually narrow-footed people that are in the minority. Some feet are unable to change their posture due to a unique arrangement of bones, or even extra bones, or bones that are somehow fused or partially connected in unexpected ways. But those are generally quite rare and probably don't apply in most cases. If you don't have x-rays showing that sort of thing, then it's probably not likely. One of the misconceptions here is that flat feet change to high arch feet and never appear flat any longer. And that's untrue. The arch of your foot is like any other joint though, and it is probably not great to be stuck in one position, be it high or low, and is usually preferred to have a range of motion available to it. You wouldn't want your elbow joint to be stuck in this position nor this position, so why would you want your arch and ankle? You want to have as much range of motion available to the joint as possible. The key is to have control in that movement, so you can move it up and down as needed, without relying on compensations from other joints upstream. Also, another issue that people have is that when they think of fixing their flat feet, they think that it will no longer pronate once they've gotten into a squat. And that's untrue too, because as you squat, the rotation of your shin, of your musculature, has to allow for the internal rotation of the ankle. So it has to do that at the bottom of the squat, at your end range motion, all right? And then it'll corkscrew as you stand up. I know it's confusing. There's so much conflicting info because one person had big toe dorsiflexion issues, so these set of exercises worked for them. Another person had no ankle inversion and they used a separate set of exercises to fix their flat feet. They can't both project to anyone else reliably because other people don't have the same movement deficiencies. It will all seem mixed up until you can identify which elements are missing and choose programming that will work specifically for you. I've provided a primer to developing foot mobility on my website, www.grownandhealthy.com. But the programming and consistency in implementation is what is missing from your foot function development. I plan to release a digital download program of exercises that cover a wide gamut of foot dysfunction in a programmed 6-week format. This will give you the guidance and accountability of what to perform and when to perform it. And for the exercises that don't work, I will have extra exercises in which you can swap out. All you need to do is bring a mindset of consistency. I will link the program in the description below and on grownandhealthy.com. My issues will not be your issues. So don't let this dissuade you from taking on the practice of fixing your feet. You may reach a higher level than I have in terms of foot articulation, with your anatomy, with your motor patterns. So don't use it as an excuse to not do anything. My life has been greatly improved through my development of my feet and fixing my flat feet. Before I was able to actually even create an arch, I couldn't even do that. And I couldn't stand for longer than 20 minutes at a time. And it was extremely uncomfortable. I ruined every pair of shoes that I had. I wore every shoe that I had in a poor pattern. Every brand new pair of shoe was hurting and ill-fitting. And it took me a great deal of practice in order to figure out what was wrong, how I could fix it in terms of my own unique anatomy and motor patterns, and then to implement it. In fact, the hardest part of the whole journey has been the consistent implementation of what works. Because of my constant experimentation, I have used more time in the research mode than the implementation mode. And that's the reason why I'm coming out with this program now, is because I know everyone's hunting for all of these exercises, but they only need a few. They need the few that work for you individually. This is not your full-time hobby. Your idea of a great day is not spending hours of foot rehab work. Maybe you have other aspects of your mobility practice. Maybe a handstand you're trying to learn, some splits. What if you also incorporate strength training? What if you do jujitsu, boxing? Then you don't have time to experiment on what could and what doesn't work. And you also will only need a certain level of functionality. Now, I know there are wizards of the foot out there who can do all types of tricks with their feet and piano rolls and all types of displays of dexterity. But if you're in pain, I think your primary focus should be to get out of pain. Maybe that will be fine enough for you and you can go on to do your other activities, or you can then pursue to further develop your abilities. I just want my foot not to hurt when I stand on it. I just want it to not hurt when I run, and I've accomplished that. In terms of the functionality that I've developed, this is it. I don't want my arches any higher, even if you told me I could. I'm out of pain, and that's where I wanted to be. I'm pleased to answer any questions on the topic, but I wanted to provide this video not only as a response to comments I've received, but to anyone who has comments or questions in the future. Understand, I started my journey of fixing my flat feet at around 40 years old, with decades of damage accumulated from narrow conventional shoes, the effects of tapered toe shoes, toe spring, heel drop, arch support, all have played a toll, and the best advice I can give you is to start early, start now. Your foot health is more important to your overall mobility than it is credited. Thanks for watching. This has been Grown and Healthy, the channel where we explore self-improvement through movement.